Good evening and good to have you with us in this edition of the Urban Debate. Viewers, tonight, for the next 2 hours, we're going to talk about the issue of the farmers' protest. The issue that started off with the farmers protesting against the 3 farm laws has now gone on for several months. For almost 3 months now, the farmers have been camping at various locations and protesting. But the issue is only getting bigger and bigger. So tonight we're going to put the spotlight on all the angles that are adding to the surround sound to this core issue. The first one, the first battleground, the latest one to have opened up is the social media battleground. Started off with a tweet from Rihanna and Greta Thunberg, then responses from our own celebrities who use the hashtag India Together and several others to say we are united, nobody can divide us, and we will resolve our own issues. This is now turned into a massive Twitter battle, not just between the Indians and the foreign celebrities, but within India as well. There are a series of Twitter spats going on. Everybody, including the government, seems to have responded to what is going on over here. The second angle that I am going to focus on is the political angle, the political battleground. Ruckus inside the parliament in both the houses, the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha, march on the streets with the MPs marching to the protest sites. Priyanka Gandhi meeting the family members of a deceased farmer. Aam Aadmi Party and the Delhi police fighting. Aam Aadmi fighting with the Congress from Punjab. Shiromani Akali Dal into this mix. Almost every political party has something or the other to do inside and outside the parliament. So we're going to talk about that and their strategies. The third one is, as this issue goes international, it's not just about international celebrities anymore. The MEA, our External Affairs Ministry, has taken it serious enough to respond and issue statements. The US government came out to back the farm laws. So even though they backed the farm laws, which is a big stand to take, they still continued in the regular preachy tone to say, well, it's also about peaceful protests and how to handle protests and ensuring that everybody gets their right to protest. So that's the US angle. In UK, a petition has started. They want a debate in the parliament, and the UK parliament may end up actually considering a debate on the Indian farm laws in their country, in their parliament. We're going to be discussing all of that. And the fourth and equally important big battleground is the investigation. What is happening at the borders of Delhi, the protests that are taking place, the investigation into the violence of January 26th, and the big battle that everybody, including the Delhi police, faces right now of fake news and false information. So all of those points will be covered in the next 2 hours in this special broadcast. Now, why are we doing this? Because many assumed that after the violence that unfolded on 26th of January, that the protest of farmers may die out, it may weaken. The farmer groups had taken a bit of responsibility for what had gone wrong, even though they said it was a conspiracy. Some of them actually backed out from the protest and went back home. We were seeing fewer people at these farmer protest sites. So obviously, in some sense, the violence had pushed the farmer groups on the back foot as well. But 10 days later, the story is completely different. It is much bigger than what it was. It is still a law and order challenge. It is still a very big political challenge. It is now an international story, and it is all over Twitter. People who had never spoken about it, people who hadn't even heard of it, are now reading up, are now talking about it, and that just adds to the big challenge. We don't forget the core issue. The core issue remains what the farmers want and how the government now resolves this issue. But that's not really moved much in the last few days, maybe because of this surround sound, or maybe because neither of the two sides are willing to budge. So let's put the spotlight on these 4 battlefields for tonight, and we start by one. We start off with the social media battleground. In case you've missed it, this is how it all started in the last couple of days. Pop star Rihanna tweeted in support of the farmers. She actually retweeted a news channel article and story, and she said, why aren't we talking about this? Hashtag I stand with farmers. That's how this started. Greta Thunberg then followed up. She tweeted expressing her support. He also tweeted a toolkit for if you want to be part of this campaign. That became controversial. So she then deleted that tweet and she came out with another one. And that toolkit is actually still available on her Twitter feed. As this happened and it became a big Twitter story and everybody started talking about it, our own celebrities decided to hit back. Kangana Ranaut obviously taking the lead over there. So Kangana and Akshay Kumar led the response from India's side. Then came the other B-Town celebrities, Karan Johar, Ekta Kapoor, there were cricketers, Sachin Tendulkar, Anil Kumble, Virat Kohli. They all tweeted saying, we stand for India united and India together. But it didn't just end there, viewers. It went on to the next level. It went on to then become a fight between us. So while it may have started off with Rihanna and Greta Thunberg, and a response from our own Kangana Ranaut, who actually said, sit down, you fool, to Rihanna, it just continued. Kangana then at one point also got into a spat with singer Diljit Dosanjh. They've been doing this for a while now. And Taapsee Pannu, who took a contrarian view. Kangana Ranaut then went on to slam Rohit Sharma for not taking a stand that was bold enough. For saying that why are you taking this wishy-washy view? Why don't you stand in a bolder way? And she was very, very insulting about it. That is one of the 3 tweets we understand that Twitter in fact deleted from Kangana's timeline. So the Twitter had to step in and they deleted 3 of Kangana's tweets. And it's not just that the Indian celebrities are all standing to hit back at Rihanna. There are others like Irfan Pathan who have said that let's all remember the kind of response we saw to George Floyd's murder, to what happened then, and we all had a view, just saying. So there are contrarian views on all sides. This is what has happened. To understand how social media really gets used as a tool, and if this is something new or this has happened forever, let's say good evening to Nikhil Pahwa, editor of Medianama, and Pranav Dixit, tech reporter of BuzzFeed News, joining us this evening. Nikhil, I want to come to you first. The biggest conversation point has become this toolkit that has been put out by Greta. Now, she says there was an outdated one. She removed that, deleted that, and she put in new one. Now, explain to us what this toolkit is and, how often does it get used this publicly?
Well, honestly, Tanvi, I haven't seen the toolkit, but I would want to talk about something slightly different, which is the attention that this entire battle has gathered. And I think that's probably the objective. While we are watching this cricket match between international celebrities and Indian celebrities, the issue which are the farm laws that have led to this protest, that have led to this gathering of farmers, that is getting sidestepped, that is going into the background, and with everyone's just focusing on what some celebrities tweeting, etc., etc. And so what we're seeing is the deployment of the weapons of mass distraction, that you just basically give templated tweets to celebrities, and we're seeing a similarity between tweets from many Indian celebrities right now. And that's all everyone seems to be talking about now, instead of the fact that there are thousands of farmers outside Delhi right now who are pushing back against this law. And instead of having a policy conversation, a serious conversation, we're discussing Greta Thunberg versus Indian celebrities and Rihanna versus Indian celebrities. I mean, what's the point of all of that? Twitter is being used across the world to mobilize people into action that we have seen. We've seen that since the Arab Spring protests where Facebook was used. When we ran the net neutrality campaign, Twitter was very critical for us in order to mobilize support for an important issue. There is nothing wrong with using platforms to mobilize support. But that sentiment where someone's coming out in support of you has to be genuine, not orchestrated. And what we're seeing, and what is, in fact, over the last many years, is political parties and now even governments using these platforms to orchestrate an opinion on Twitter through celebrities, through even members of parliament we've seen, where they're all tweeting the exact same text in order to influence TV channels and the media, like channels like yours, channels like others, which are just drawing from it and discussing what they're saying instead of discussing the real issues, to be honest. And I'm not saying that you don't discuss the real issues, but I'm saying these are essentially, this is what social media has become today, is the deployment of the weapons of mass distraction by political parties to draw attention away from them. So when I look at these things as a journalist, my question is, what are they drawing attention away from? Because this cricket match, between celebrities will keep going on. Today it's one thing, tomorrow it's another thing. Every day they'll throw out new ammunition, and maybe there's a bill that's being prepared or something that's happening in Parliament that we are not discussing today, because we're discussing what one celebrity is saying in response to another. And I think it's important for us as citizens, as people, to take a step back and look at what we are being distracted away from.
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, Nikhil, I'll tell you this. Yesterday, we didn't even want to touch the story. And we didn't at all, because the core
I
issue...
wasn't referring specifically to...
Yeah, of course. No, I understand that the point you're making. What I am also intending to do right now and trying to do is bring out to people that this is a strategy that has been used far too many times by groups, governments, associations, campaigners across the world. This is how now Twitter gets used, or any of the social media platforms. In the older days, and let's also say good evening to Pranav Dixit, who is joining us. In the older days, Pranav, the format was word of mouth and pamphlets and posters maybe. And if somebody wanted to, gather momentum and gather support, they would put up these posters and pamphlets and use loudspeakers to try and reach out to people and spread awareness about an issue that they wanted to talk about. It now looks as if the template is a toolkit. And I'm not specifically just talking about the one that Greta has put out and whoever created that, but to lay out a campaign plan, say these are the 5 hashtags we are going to use. We are going to use I Stand With Farmers, or we are going to use India Together. Both sides seem to be doing that. A concerted attempt to create a lot of noise on social media with similar kind of keywords, similar kind of statements, using influencers and celebrities on both sides. To me right now, it does look as if both sides seem to be using the same strategy, and perhaps it's not the first time it's been done to garner support, gather support, or even create buzz. Is it so problematic to say, oh, one person shared a toolkit and it looks like a conspiracy?
Sorry, was that question for me?
Yes, Pranav.
Yeah, no, like you rightly pointed out, people have been, using whatever tools that they have at their disposal to, spread the word and mobilize for many years. And honestly, I don't know too much about this Greta toolkit, but from what I understand, toolkits like this or, campaigns like this are a pretty standard part of what a lot of social justice warriors around the world do, a lot of organizations around the world do to spread the word on the internet in an organized fashion. We also saw that happening at the end of 2019 when we had the CAA protests and everybody was organizing on Instagram and Google Docs and WhatsApp. So I don't think there's anything new about it, to be honest, and I don't know why that has become some kind of a flashpoint in this conversation.
Absolutely. Maybe, like Nikhil says, the fact is that you're trying to distract and one side is trying to make it sound as if this is bad and this is a conspiracy. Planned campaigns can take place across the world. Now, I am saying this basis the fact that I don't know who planned this, if they did, for the other side. If the foreign celebrities and influencers were being told by a group of entities to do this and to tweet that, we don't know that yet. Quite possible it did happen. Nikhil.
If I may, Tanvi, look, when we ran the net neutrality campaign, we had a plan.
Yes, exactly.
We spoke with AIB. We wanted them to share our message, and we wanted that to go out to more and more people. After the campaign went live, much to my surprise, we found, for example, Shah Rukh Khan tweeting about Save the Internet. We found multiple celebrities supporting the cause. So it's not that all celebrities that support a campaign on the online are necessarily a part of the campaign, but sometimes the message can resonate with someone. So I think there might be a toolkit, but the message isn't necessarily created for them. So Shah Rukh Khan never used words that we had put together. But what it seems to be in case of Rihanna and some of the others, it doesn't look like there's orchestration there, because you're not seeing the same message across multiple celebrities. On the other side, you're seeing the same text, the same lines by multiple people. So if you go back to a few years ago, Alt News had even shared publicly a Google Doc where there was text that multiple members of parliament were tweeting in support of the government.
Right.
So they just copy pasted, and they have social media teams managing who do these things. So very different scenarios. But it's also important to remember that not all celebrity endorsement is a part of the campaign. They can join the campaign if they believe in an issue. And not all campaigns are bad or meant to distract. They're also meant to educate and inform. Campaigning is political action. It is important political action. It can change the way things happen. Our campaign led to India having the strongest net neutrality regulations in the world. And that's a good outcome. If, for example, the farm bills need to be amended, if they need to be fairer to farmers, and there are thousands of farmers camping outside, and there's a campaign that highlights their plight so that people notice it and start discussing and debating, and that leads to better laws and the government listens to them, that's actually a good thing. So campaigns aren't necessarily bad. It's when campaigns are used to create disinformation, to try and create disunity, to try and picture someone as being what they are not, that kind of behavior is actually disingenuous. And that's where these orchestrated campaigns that we see, all campaigns are orchestrated, but many times the kind of campaigning that we see is meant to either distract, belittle, or destroy reputations in order to change the way people think about things.
Yeah. And it can work both ways. And the danger of having such platforms and living in the age that we do today is that the same platforms can be used constructively or can be used in a destructive manner. In fact, that brings me to the other point that I wanted to speak to both of you about. And Pranav, to you first. Twitter also seems to be a little bit stuck here, getting sandwiched from both ends. After, the violence that unfolded, say, about in the last week and 10 days ago, Twitter was asked by the government to suspend certain accounts. They did suspend those 250 accounts for some reason. They reinstated them within a few hours, and the government has sent them a notice. So obviously, they're facing the ire from the government for allowing some content that the government believes is adding and inciting people and adding to the problem. On the other hand, today, they also seem to have taken action against Kangana Ranaut. They deleted 3 of her tweets. We believe one of those tweets was very insulting to Rohit Sharma and what she said to him and the way she challenged him. So they seem to be also acting for this side and the other side, and yet they seem to be getting the wrath from both sides. Now, what is the role that a social media platform needs to play at such times?
Yeah, I mean, I think Twitter is in a really tough spot right now because, if they do block the accounts, once again, it would mean, being accused of participating in this ongoing crackdown on, people say free speech and dissent in India amidst these protests. But on the other hand, letting the accounts remain on the platform, they're definitely risking political and legal consequences in the country. It's a little bit like being caught between a rock and a hard place. Just like everybody, it's going to be interesting is going to, because I think one thing is clear that by restoring the accounts, Twitter did seem to have violated the initial order that the government had given them, asking them to withhold the accounts in India. How they are going to deal with the legal repercussions of that, what kind of repercussions are there going to be, that's something that we are going to be watching really closely over the next few weeks.
Yeah, because it again comes back to the debate we've had many times, which is to say, to what extent should there be intervention from the platform itself? And the fact that there isn't enough transparency, Nikhil, when it comes to their policies and how those policies get implemented.
Well, frankly, in this case, Tanvi, the problem is with the government, because the law, Section 69A of the IT Act, the rules actually prevent disclosure and they enforce secrecy. Not just on the government, but also on platforms. In fact, the government can disclose. So if you go back to the ban on the Chinese apps back in August last year, that was under Section 69. And in that case, the government had issued press releases indicating what they're doing and why they're doing and which apps have been banned. In this case, there's no transparency from the government. And Twitter, because of Section 69A, has cannot disclose what's happening. So, as you know, we don't know as if we want to question the legitimacy of the order as citizens of the country, many of whom have found that their accounts have been blocked. We can't because we don't have a copy of the order. Even today, even privately, I haven't been able to get a copy of the order. So we don't know under what grounds the government has done this. What we do understand from the leaked subsequent notice that was sent to Twitter was that it was on the grounds of public order. Now, if you think about public order, the accounts have been back up, the hashtag has been running, and it hasn't caused a public order issue. So therefore, the ground under which it was issued is also questionable because it hasn't led to a problem. So what was the assessment done by the government saying that a hashtag or these specific accounts are going to lead to a public order issue? And was there a clear and present danger? Was the action proportionate? Could they have initially issued orders for removing certain tweets or certain messages which may perhaps have been violative of the laws of the land instead of banning the entire account? Because when you're banning the entire account, you're also censoring legitimate speech.
Okay.
In the same way, when you're banning a hashtag, you also end up censoring counter speech. There's someone who might be countering that particular
using
message.
that hashtag.
Right. So basically the level of censorship here is extreme.
Yeah.
And therefore we don't even know. I'm glad Twitter has restored the account and is in effect challenging this particular clause of this section of the IT Act. I hope that this goes to court, and I hope that Section 69A gets declared unconstitutional because the secrecy is, to my mind, undemocratic.
Okay, point taken. Okay, I am out of time, but yes, Pranav, you wanted to add to it, so please do so.
Yeah, no, I'll just quickly add on to what Nikhil said. This entire order is shrouded in secrecy because of the way 69A is.
Yes.
But just what you can glean a little bit from the notice that the government sent Twitter on Tuesday is the fact that Twitter does seem to have pushed back a little. They sat on the order for almost 24 hours before actually pulling the accounts down. They, in fact, argued with the IT Ministry Committee that the government should have asked for individual tweets to be blocked and not entire accounts, for instance. And they also made freedom of speech arguments. And if you actually read this notice that they have been sent, the government's sort of wrapped them pretty badly in this case.
Yes, and I think, that issue, I will probably have both of you back on the show and we will debate a little bit more. We'll go into the laws that exist right now as well. But thank you so much for joining us this evening and giving us your perspective. This is just part one, which is the social media background that I wanted to focus on. And I just have a simple message for our viewers as I thank my guests. Viewers, this strategy is an age-old strategy, if I can use that phrase, when it comes to social media. This is how campaigns are designed, and campaigns garner interest, gather support, spread information, spread awareness. Now, whether that is used constructively or in a destructive manner is a different point. Whether it's used by people with motivated interest or with genuine interest is a different point. But to say that it is necessarily a conspiracy because there is a Google document, there's a big question mark on it until we have more information. Google documents that are shared over large groups so that people get the same message and populate your Twitter feeds with that message is something that is happening on a daily basis, not only in our country, but across the world. That's how topics and hashtags actually begin to trend and pop up in feeds of most users to get the message across. This time it has been used to bring the farmers' protest in spotlight. So let's not get distracted with anything else. Let's simply talk about the farm laws and what it is that the farmers want rather than this other surround sound noise that we've seen.